Welcome into the Thunder basketball universe presented by Summer Moon Coffee. Today's episode, we are recording on Sunday, June 15th. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, including the father we have in this studio right here, the pod father, Nick Gallo. Happy Father's Day, man.
Thank you, Paris. I appreciate it. This is obviously such a special day, such a special time in all of our lives here. We've got a even series. My kids, I know, are really into it right now. They don't really totally understand what's going on, but they love chanting OKC. And so for, 4.5-year-old, 3-year-old, and nearly a 2-year-old, that's about as good as it gets. When you can all chant in unison about something and get fired up, it's good.
I'll tell you what, the Gallo family, when they come to the game, they're locked in. You can feel that energy. I know your oldest, she is on it. She loves coming to games. She brings some good energy.
My middle one's locked in on the popcorn, so he and Michael Cage are right on the same level.
Best buds.
They're still, it's all about the Thunder experience, right?
It sure is.
And that's what's going to happen here tomorrow, because Paycom Center is going to be rocking in that experience. I just cannot wait for that.
It's going to be great because the Thunder, they're coming into Game 5. This series is all tied up 2-2. And the Thunder, they split those games out in Indianapolis, lost Game 3. That was a really tough one for Oklahoma City, but only had one day in between Game 3, Game 4, got back to 0. And Game 4 it had a lot of chapters in it. We're going to break down a lot of it, but Coach Daigneault called it a blood and guts win. And I just think that is the perfect descriptor for anyone who watched Game 4. Thunder fans, I know it was stressful for about 3/4 of that game, but the fact that OKC was able to pull that game out, very impressive stuff.
Yeah, it was a gory box score, and I think that we'll get to all of that. But yeah, blood and guts, certainly an apt moniker for that game, but it's not supposed to be easy.
Nope.
This is the NBA Finals. I mean, this is what it's going to take to eke out these wins, to survive haymakers that the other team is throwing, and this is what it's all about. The Thunder was able to wrestle home court advantage back, and now it's a best-of-3 series. And we heard from players today here inside this building, and Jalen Williams said, hey, we're treating this as game 1. We are turn the page. There's no such thing as momentum game to game in a playoff series. This Thunder team has learned that so far this postseason. Now they're going out and applying it.
They have a great opportunity to do that in this building tomorrow in Game 5. But before we get into that game and what you can look forward to, let's get into our Summer Moon stat of the week. There's so many stats to choose from over these last couple of games. So Nick, I'll let you go first. What's yours?
12-1.
Oh, that's an easy one. That's an easy one. Thank you for the layup on that one. That's a good one. This is the run the Thunder went on to close out that blood and guts win out in Indy in Game 4.
Yeah, I mean, talk about slamming the door on somebody else's house. And that's exactly what the Thunder did in Indiana. They're down 4 with a few minutes to go. And, OKC just, they got into it. They got into some great 2-man game action between Shea and J-Dub out top. Shea hits a catch and shoot 3. Then he hits a jumper on the left wing after OKC gets a good stop. And then from there on out, it was just that late game execution of hitting free throws, getting stops, forcing missed shots, trying to get, every loose ball that they could, and then getting a little lucky. I mean, that's part of the playoffs too. The Pacers missed a few free throws down the stretch, and it all adds up to being able to come away with a win on the road.
Going into that fourth quarter, the Thunder were down 7 points. They just had not had it really offensively, but they hung in there. And so you look at a 7-point deficit, that could have easily been 15, 18, 20. It could have been a little bit more insurmountable. 7, okay, this is doable with 12 minutes on the clock. That's encouraging. And the way they were able to do that was just manufacturing points throughout the entirety of the game, so that when you get into that fourth quarter, a couple of shots start to go down for Oklahoma City. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes on a heater, who we will talk about, don't you worry. And then you get some really solid stops. Indiana misses shots. You start stacking those opportunities, and suddenly you look up. It is a tied ball game. The Thunder's able to turn this thing around. Indy hasn't scored for 3 minutes or something like that. And now Oklahoma City has this golden opportunity to run through the finish line of the game. And we talked to so many of the guys after. Literally, we just left we just left practice here at the arena. And the guys were like, the mentality of the group was that it's a 48-minute game. This game, we didn't lose the game going into, after 3 quarters. There's this entire fourth quarter left to play. We know what's on the line, and we just had to sprint through the finish line.
And, this has been a mantra of the team for years of like, this is a 48-minute game. And actually really up to this point in the series, the Thunder had not put together a 48-minute game or necessarily oriented itself to maximize what it could do in the final minutes of a 48-minute game. I think Mark Daigneault sort of talked about that a little bit here today at practice, that some of the rotational adjustments that were made, some of the, the change to, starting lineup with Isaiah Hartenstein in, some of that geared towards how can we be at our best in the fourth quarter and giving ourselves a chance to have the type of energy and flow that we needed to have come the fourth quarter. We'll see if any of that happens here in game 5, because each game is unto itself a different journey and dynamic. But it was interesting to hear Mark Daigneault kind of speak to try to maximize the lineup, the rotation, and the guys' energy levels over the course of a 48-minute game.
It really is a lot to think about, manage, and just try to roll out there in this sort of setting. So it obviously worked for Oklahoma City there in game 4. My stat kind of goes into this, but kind of not. My stat is 3.
Well, I know the Thunder made 3 3-pointers in the entire game, and that, it's just absolutely astounding that they won that game despite only making 3 threes.
That's the stat? That's
okay,
it.
Yeah.
Because and to your point, the Thunder made 3 threes and only 2 in the first 3 quarters of this game. Lou made 1 in the first quarter. I think it was Alex Caruso who made 1 in the third quarter. And then SGA made the Thunder's 3rd 3 in that fourth quarter, part of his incredible run in the fourth. And for me, this stat stands out so significantly because it adds some great context to why the Thunder called this a blood and guts win. They were not shooting the ball well at all from 3. And we've seen the Thunder have really good shooting nights. We know what they're capable of from behind the arc. And to only have 3 made threes in this game. Meanwhile, the Indiana Pacers had 11 made threes. And a lot of that was in the first couple of quarters of this game as well. But the Thunder did not fall behind by more than 10 points in this game, despite the fact that you're basically counting by 1s and 2s for the majority of the game.
Yeah, and just stayed attached. And I think somebody that deserves a huge amount of credit for that is Jalen Williams. I know that we'll talk about him, but he just really helped this team in terms of being an offensive engine when things were maybe stalling out a bit and when Shea was being top locked and face guarded and double teamed and really played so physically. And J-Dub was able to just manufacture enough. He had so many of those little driving lefty layups where he never even picked the ball back up with his right hand, but just sort of scooped it off the dribble and got it up on the backboard. His ability to improve his handle, improve his touch has really impacted this team because he's able to get up shots and get shots off that he just wasn't able to last year or the year before.
Finished with 27 points in this game and was playing with a lot of force, just getting downhill. And a guy like Aaron Nesmith guarding him throughout the night was picking up fouls a lot. And that was just because of the force that J-Dub was putting on him defensively. And just to go back to Oklahoma City's ability to just manufacture offense, manufacture points. They only had 3 made threes. That means 9 points of their offense came from 3-pointers tonight. The rest of that offense generated points off turnovers. 25 points off turnovers. They also had 23 second chance points in this game. And then you had 50 points in the paint compared to 36 for Indy.
Right.
So you create these margins and you create these, these positive pockets of offense in different areas of the game that aren't as loud, obviously, as the 3-point shots. But guys like Chet Holmgren picking up those offensive rebounds and making sure the Thunder's able to get second chance opportunities. Those things were so pivotal in this game, and especially in that second half.
I'm so glad that you brought up Chet because I really clocked that too as you were talking about this, that some of those putbacks by Chet in the fourth quarter, particularly the beginning of the fourth, were really, really massive. And one of them came at about 9:30 to go after a Shea missed 3, and it forced an Indiana timeout. And I just remember there being this feeling inside the arena. OKC had then cut the lead to 3. And there's a feeling inside the arena of like, oh, no. Like there was maybe an expectation that they were going to just blow the Thunder out in the fourth quarter and kind of take their will away. And Chet, his activity, his quickness. I talked to Chet after the game about this, just like, and he was more humble about it than maybe I was asking, but he just said he happened to be in the right place a few times. But I'm sure for Chet, his whole basketball career, there's been so much focus on his height and his length, and his quickness was what helped win this game for the Thunder, particularly on those offensive boards. And then I think maybe we'll talk a little bit later about the defense too.
Yeah, I mean, Chet in this game, 14 points, 15 rebounds. I mean, truly, he was all over the glass. Really, really good for Oklahoma City just in terms of patrolling that paint. Also had a block, had a steal. A pretty well-rounded game for Chet in this one. I want to take a second because we talked a little bit about J-Dub.
Yeah.
Let's really dive into his game because he finished with 27 points, like we mentioned, and it felt like for the first quarter of this one, it was like J-Dub really helping to generate a lot of stuff for Oklahoma City, especially offensively. And he finished the night, he was 8 of 18, but 11 of 11 from the free throw line. Didn't miss a shot from the free throw line, but it felt like he was just really adamant, really aggressive about getting downhill and not really settling, but like trying to just really create a lot of attention on him that would open up other things.
Yeah, and he said that he has really learned over the course of time what he needs to be good at. And I think it's no coincidence that his handle is better this year than it was last year. He said that, every playoff series, when you get, if you get to the end of the season, the game has just told you what teams think you're good at and what teams think you're not good at, and what they're going to let you do and what they're going to not let you do. And J-Dub said that he felt pretty strongly that he came into last summer with an understanding of some very clear objectives for him of what he needed to get better for these types of opportunities where he's being scouted against and game planned. And what's remarkable is that he's now actually getting easier stuff, is what we saw in game 4 there. He got easier stuff than he has been getting over the course of the playoffs, maybe because he's improved over the course of time as he's been schemed and game planned against. All of this may change in game 5 with the recognition that, J-Dub got to some of his spots that he wanted to, going left in particular. But it's great to see that ability to grow, not just year over year, but within series and within playoff runs too.
And we heard from J-Dub, I think it was this season. This postseason feels like a season in itself, so it's kind of all blurring together. But I think it was earlier this season, and the biggest emphasis for him offensively was just playing with force. He was talking about a lot of was made of just like him being able to get to the free throw line and being able to draw fouls. And he said, I've had to just not think about that and just focus my attention instead on playing forceful offensively. That means playing with physicality, not being knocked off my drive, and not worrying about the, pressure and the physicality that I'm getting from opponents and just playing through it. Yeah. Mind you, J-Dub is strong. Like he's got a great frame, great build. And so when he gets downhill, he can finish through a lot of contact. And we've seen him growth in that area throughout this season. And I feel like we saw it really shine in game 4 in that first quarter. He's getting downhill. He's forcing Aaron Nesmith to really just kind of, have to apply a lot of pressure just to not allow an easy shot off. But that's something that's been an emphasis for J-Dub over the course of the season.
Yeah, and his playmaking has then opened things up for everybody else as well, including late in the fourth quarter when he went into the 2-man game with Shea, and all of the work that Dub had been doing up to that point in the game then has an impact on how Indiana is trying to guard late in the game. And so, when Shea comes over and sets a screen on Nesmith and then gets the switch, well, then all of a sudden, Indiana's looking at it, okay, well, who do we want to keep our matchup on here? Because Dub has been such a threat. They feel like, okay, we still got 2 good defenders out there, but the Thunder had manipulated it to at least get the floor spaced and get the ball in the hands of the guys that they wanted to in those situations. And, Dub on a macro level, by basically being the running back for the Thunder's run game throughout the entirety of that game.
It's a great way to put it.
Gave Shea enough juice and enough energy to close the game out in the fourth quarter when Shea had 14 clutch points to close the game.
I'm glad you brought up Shea. That's a great segue.
I read your rundowns.
You do such a great job, and I tell you, this is why you're the podfather right here. But Shea Gilgeous-Alexander finishes the game with 35 points. Now, 20 of those points came through the first 3 quarters. 15 in the fourth quarter alone. And he was responsible for 15 of the Thunder's last 16 points in this game. Absolute dominant performance by SGA, and a very well-rounded performance because he was obviously responsible for the Thunder's final made three-pointer of this game. So he had a made three, and that was off a really good possession that you were alluding to.
Yes, yeah.
J-Dub's ability to draw the attention to him, kick the ball out to Shea, and because of that action between those two guys, it led to a wide open look for Shea in the corner.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's something I also talked to Shea about after game 4 of like, Shea gets less than one catch and shoot 3-point attempt per game in the regular season. And yet in that moment, no hesitation to take that shot. And we see him in practice. He's working on catch and shoot threes. And like for a guy like Shea to have the work ethic to continue to invest in a part of the game that he might get one or less catch and shoot three over the course of a game, and for him to still be investing the time and working on that skill, I just think says so much about who he is. And then to have the confidence and the skill to be able to deliver in the highest pressure moment when he'd already played, 37, 38 minutes to that point. I just think really, really special stuff. And then, he goes and gets one of his signature buckets on the baseline one possession later.
And it just felt like we were seeing Shea from my perspective, watching Shea in that fourth quarter, it wasn't anything like drastic. That three maybe was like, oh wow, like that was great. But it was all just stuff we've seen from Shea throughout the course of this season. And it honestly didn't hit me that Shea was the one that was scoring the majority of Oklahoma City's buckets until maybe the final minute of that game, just because everything kind of felt like it was pretty in the flow. Like it was pretty solid offense that the Thunder was running. They were, getting stops defensively, getting good looks on the other end. And it just happened to be that it was Shea that was getting a lot of those buckets. And a lot of that too was Shea making his free throws. He was 10 for 10 from the free throw line in this game. But also, Shea was also a big element to the defensive end as well. He had 3 steals in this game.
Yeah, it really denied Siakam on a lot of those entry passes. And we heard from Rick Carlisle today, the Indiana head coach, that Pascal Siakam only getting 1 shot attempt in the fourth quarter was unacceptable for them. Well, Shea was a big reason for that.
Yeah.
Those denials of those entry passes were critical. And of course, there were many other teammates involved in some of that as well. But to your point, I don't think Shea took a free throw until the third quarter of game 4. But for him to be nails at the free throw line, and also for the Thunder to execute to get their best free throw shooter the ball on inbounds plays, and there was one harrowing one, but to be able to get Shea the ball in good spots, to be able to get him fouled, to be able to run stuff where twice the Pacers foul before the pass is even inbounded, so that gives the Thunder an extra free throw. All of that execution stuff plays into how you steal a game on the road the way the Thunder did.
This brings something up for me that I really wanted to talk about because Shea, we have seen for 6 seasons now, unrattled in any situation, unflappable. It doesn't matter if the Thunder is down by 30, up by 30. You are going to get the same even-keeled demeanor from Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. It's one of his biggest strengths as a player. And so going into that fourth quarter, Thunder down 7 points, only made 2 threes in this game. You're on the road in the NBA Finals. It has all of the ingredients for like a stressful, tense, pressing performance, right? Where you feel like you have to force things. You feel like you have to try hard. You feel like you have to make all of the hero plays in one possession. And from Shea, what we saw in that fourth quarter was very methodical, very calm, cool, collected, and stuff that we've seen from him all season long. And that has a really big trickle-down effect. The entire Thunder roster, the entire team, this is new for everybody. This whole experience is very new, and it's stressful, it's intense, but there was a sense of poise, composure, and calm from this young group in that fourth quarter. This is the biggest game that they've played in their entire careers, and they come back and put together an incredible fourth quarter performance to tie the series up. The mentality of this group is so incredibly impressive.
Well, and this ties back to the goals of the organization for the last half decade and more, really, the entire existence. But really, this iteration of the team has approached how to be great from a philosophical level. We've talked about the trained adaptability that this team has, put itself in different situations. Part of that is also intentionally putting themselves in uncomfortable situations, right? And I think from a psychological standpoint, that's where growth can really happen, when you are voluntarily putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, intentional discomfort. And so when actual true adversity and discomfort comes and is thrown your way unexpectedly, well, you've been trained to live and breathe in those circumstances. That's exactly what we saw from the Thunder. We heard great stories after the game from Mark Daigneault saying that one of the best voices on the bench all of Game 4 was Jalen Williams, who didn't play a second of that game. And yet for the Thunder, just again, you're seeing an uncommon poise and uncommon maturity that certainly has to do with the type of human beings in the building, but it also has to do with what the Thunder has been trying to accomplish now.
It's habits that they've just built up to this point, so that for these moments, you've kind of felt this experience before. You're like, oh, this is uncomfortable, this is difficult, this is new, but we've sat in this feeling before, so this we know how to navigate it. And I'm glad you brought up Jay Will, because I feel like another invisible contributor to this game, when things were getting a little dicey, things were uncomfortable, Indiana felt like they had perfect control of this game. Kenrich Williams, he only finished the game with 4 points off the bench. And Kenrich, he played 11 minutes in this game. I think he played 8 in Game 3. Like, he's not playing massive minutes for Oklahoma City, but they are massive, because he came into this game, he knocked down a layup, he had an offensive rebound, he had an awesome assist to Alex Caruso, just a nice, slipped the screen, got the ball, one quick pass to Caruso for a layup, and then just the incredible defensive pressure from Kenrich in this game. He brings so much intensity and energy, and it felt like that was part of the run. I think it was the end of the first quarter into the second quarter, where Indiana could have kind of stretched their lead maybe to double digits, but Kenrich Williams comes in and just helps wrangle things a little bit and stabilize the game.
Well, it was a pivotal part of the game, because I think Indiana had 24 points in the first 6 minutes of the first quarter. It hadn't been going great, and the Thunder decided to downsize a little bit, went smaller with Kenrich in there alongside Chet, I believe. And the defense got cracked back on track. And as the guys would say, they got the car back on the road. Kenrich is a great get the car back on the road guy. He is this bellwether for this Thunder team, in terms of like, all right, everybody follow the bell of Kenrich Williams, and this is where we got to go. I mean, he just understands what the leader is the person doing the right thing, as Mark Daigneault always says. And Kenrich is, almost always doing the right thing, and that helps coalesce with the team as well.
Quick Kenrich sidebar, because I got a chance to talk to him today. It's obviously Father's Day, and he was asked, he's got three girls, and he's always bringing them around. They're always very present, and he was asked, how do they inspire you? And I'm sure you can relate to this, but he said, it gives me so much great perspective, because these girls have no idea what's going on. They have no idea that their dad is playing in the biggest games of his career and in his life. And it's so incredibly humbling, because I go out here, I play this, big time game, and I'm doing all this great stuff, and I'm going home and I'm changing diapers. And I'm, being a dad, and I'm, playing with them. And then I come back here. It gives him great perspective. And that's, I think, the humanity of Kenrich Williams too. He's always very grounded, just very present, very locked in wherever he is. Like, that's where his attention is going to be. So, like, he checks into the game and he's going to give you 110%, because that's all, like, that's what he does best. That's who he's been his entire life. And then he goes home and he's 110% as a dad. And I love that perspective, and hearing that from Kenrich, because that really is who he is 24/7.
I mean, he shows up in his truck and he just gets to work, and he obviously does, but he just comes across as a guy that, like, doesn't have a cell phone, doesn't really care if he has it, wherever. It's like, he just, he is locked in. And the
ultimate be where your feet are kind of guy. And that's been a mantra of Mark Daigneault's for a long time.
And an intense competitor, but in a positive and joyous way. He's not, that locked inness can sometimes go like so,
it can be volatile,
to the extreme, but Kenrich has such an easy way about him. And again, he's certainly where his feet are.
Yeah. Lou said, oh my gosh, he was asked about Kenrich and just the impact that he's had. He's like, yeah, he's an old head. Yeah. He's like the unk on the team.
Yeah.
And like,
by the way, he's like 30.
He's like barely 30.
31 maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Him and Alex Caruso, those guys those are the unks in the room.
Yeah.
But they have so much respect for Kenrich because of that. And the demeanor and the poise and the composure that he brings to the locker room is great stuff.
His switchability and his ability to stay in front is also really critical. And I just wanted to touch on
good point.
That, as well as what we saw late from Chet when Chet Holmgren got into some switches that got Indiana out of rotation and forced Tyrese Halliburton to try to go one-on-one against Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
Kenrich can do some similar things just given his size and his length, but also the ability to stay with guys on the perimeter and just his toughness defensively. Those are going to be some critical possessions here in this best of 3 series, is like who's winning some of those one-on-one isolation defensive battles when Indiana's trying to manufacture matchups. We heard from Mark Daigneault, Indiana in game 3 set more screens than any team in any game the entire season. 111. And so the Thunder is going to be having to deal with that for the rest of this series.
Yeah.
How OKC navigates those screens, the intensity and the aggressiveness that we saw from the Thunder, I think that was massive in the fourth quarter of that game, that OKC wasn't just like waiting to receive Indiana's offense. They were aggressively going out and being first to contact and putting Indiana's offense on its heels, as opposed to just sort of waiting to see what was going to happen.
That's what we heard from a lot of the players, was when they say like, play with more force, impose our will. A lot of that is in those sort of moments where it's like, okay, Indiana is going to try to come in here and peel Lou Dort off of Tyrese Halliburton in this screen. Okay, how are we executing this? And how are we, touch, talk, take, like all of those things go into making sure that you're winning those sort of possessions, and having great players with great switchability like Chet Holmgren. And you talked about it, not just his size, but his lateral quickness to be able to navigate those sort of situations. And then also Kenrich Williams with great switchability, versatility out there on the perimeter. I mean, we've seen Kenrich play the 5 a lot throughout not just this postseason, but also in the regular season as well, when the Thunder were dealing with injuries. So his switchability, versatility, same with J-Dub. A lot of these guys have that ability to help out Oklahoma City in those sort of screens. So it's a little bit of a chess match for Oklahoma City out there in those screens. I mentioned his name. I want to talk about him a little more.
Okay.
Alex Caruso, because he comes into the game off the bench. He finishes with 20 points. And so much when we talk about Alex Caruso, it's his invisible stuff, it's the blue collar plays, it's the scrap, it's the hustle, which was still very evident, but it's also cool for him to see him have these headlining moments, which are very visible, and have a 20-point performance and be one of the 3 guys for Oklahoma City that finishes with 20 plus.
Yeah, and it was extremely efficient, and also not necessarily how we normally see him score. So much of it was beating his guy off the bounce. So much of it was, finding little cracks in the defense. He hit a baseline fadeaway jumper, off the bounce. This was really important and needed offense for the Thunder, just to, again, stay attached, keep the scoreboard connected enough. And after the game, he talked about this being part of his workout regimen in the summer, was recognizing coming to this team, given some of the top line threats that the Thunder had already, he needed to be poised and ready to play off the catch, to beat guys one-on-one, knowing that when you get into these types of settings and environments, everybody's game plan is to be takeaway option A, B, and C. And that leaves, D and E needing to be able to make some plays for the team.
By the way, he still finished the game with 5 steals. So all of the stuff that he was known for, it's not either or. You're still going to get the same Alex Caruso defensively. And let me tell you, he was as electric and as disruptive as he's been all season long.
Yeah, and that's what the Thunder is going to need in Game 5 at home. I mean, just continued electricity on the defensive end, connection, communication. Caruso provides all of that, but you got to have it in order to keep this Pacers offense down. I mean, when that team gets rolling and when they score 111 or more, they're very, very difficult to beat.
Yeah, so for Oklahoma City, let's get into what's brewing, because you mentioned it, Game 5 right here in Oklahoma City on Monday. And that game, it tips off at 7:30 p.m. We were just downstairs, Nick, in the bowl. It's all set up.
Yeah, they're ready to rock.
They're ready to rock. I mean, we're getting the checkerboard T-shirts in the arena. really cool to see that. And I know it's going to be loud. I know it's going to be rowdy. And the Thunder earned this opportunity to have this home court advantage when this series is all tied up. And now you get to play in front of your home crowd, and it's going to be a very, very big game.
And this even is another new experience for the Thunder and Thunder fans. You know, the last time that the Thunder was in the NBA Finals, the series was 2-3-2.
Yeah.
So OKC and the team didn't get a chance to have that Game 5 at home. They split the 2 home games, and then they had to go on the road to Miami for 3 games, and they never got to come back here.
Yeah.
And so this is such a wonderful opportunity for the Thunder to be able to say, okay, we've got a best of 3 series now. We get the first one, and if we have to, we got the third one on our home court. Let's go get this Game 5 and let's have it in front of our guys.
Yeah, we heard from a lot of guys about how they're approaching this. You mentioned it. It's Game 1 basically for these guys. Well, hearing from the Pacers as well and some of their players, they're feeling the same way.
Yeah.
They're very much locked in on this 0-0 approach coming into this game. So the slate is basically clean for both of these teams. However, we know from Oklahoma City, and we've heard time and time again, that they want to be a team that evolves through the series. And so they're downloading all of this information from every single game and using it to their advantage going into the next time that they play the Pacers. And so they have a lot of stuff. They have a lot of lessons. They got a lot of experiences, even though they're approaching this game as though it's a brand new series.
Yeah, and so much of the talk from both head coaches also is a level of simplicity and just, you know, having a concise, clear message.
Yeah.
Concise, clear directives. Mark Daigneault said even before the series that, you know, what Indiana does is conceptual in nature, but it is relatively straightforward. That doesn't mean that it's easy or simple, but it is a straightforward and digestible approach for Indiana, which has allowed them to play with such confidence and instinct. That's how the Thunder's defense operates to some degree as well. The offense more and more over the course of time in addition to that. So there's a level of competitiveness and fire and just instinct that both of these teams are playing off of.
Yep.
As much as they can be out of their own heads, the better as you go clear-eyed into this experience.
And the Thunder has an opportunity to do that on Monday in this building at 7:30. And then Game 6, that's going to be on Thursday. That is also going to be at 7:30, but that's out in Indy. So a lot to look forward to. This has been a long series already, but really fun basketball. Like when you look at these two teams and you look at how these games have played out over the course of these 4 games, I mean, every game wildly different, and it feels like a different guy has shown up in each game. So it's been like really fun basketball.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the joy of what's ahead of us. Is this series is unwritten.
Yeah,
none of us know which role players are going to step up. None of us know what the arc of these games are going to look like. I mean, I don't think anybody with about 13, 14 minutes left in the game of Game 4 saw the script turning the way that it did in Game 4, just like it did in Game 1. And so that's the beauty of live sports. Come out to Paycom Center and enjoy it, and post up in front of your TVs and watch on ABC.
That's right. Time to lock in Monday, 7:30 for Game 5 against the Pacers. But that wraps up today's episode. We're going to let Nick go so that he can go enjoy a nice Father's Day with his family. But thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.